When you are in an unpleasant situation, you have three choices. Leave the situation, change it, or accept it completely. Hi, welcome to the Self-Up. This time, I want to talk about the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This book discusses the power of living in the moment to improve the quality of life lived. Many times we spend our time either stuck in the past, or anxious about a future that we can't control. At the same time, we also wish our lives could be happier even though we don't know how. By living in the moment, you will find happiness in your whole self. I summarized it into 3 important things from this book. First, living in the past and in the future. We tend to spend our time thinking about the past and the future. We are busy remembering and regretting the past, or at other times, we are busy planning or worrying about the future. What we often forget is that the moment that is available to us is the present. In fact, the most important moment in life is the present moment. Whenever you feel something, it's in the present moment. If you are aware of it, then you will realize that the past is nothing more than a collection of present moments that have already passed, and the future is just a collection of present moments waiting to come into your life. For example, one morning you wake up 10 minutes late from your daily routine. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe you're annoyed that you overslept, and you think, I wish you hadn't turned off the alarm when it first rang. Your mind immediately flies back to the future and thinks that you will definitely get scolded by your boss for being late. This is what usually happens. We get lost in the past and the future. There is no benefit in worrying about the future or living in the past. However, there are many benefits to living in the moment. For example, you get a challenging assignment like writing a thesis. Often, this seems too big and complicated to achieve. If you're anxious about the amount of work that needs to be done, or regretting why you didn't start working on it in the first place, neither of these will change the reality you're living in now. However, if you try to work on each part of the thesis one by one, then you will find it easier to complete it. Have you ever realized that while no one wants to suffer, why are so many people unhappy? Apparently, the source of their suffering comes from the mind. Did you know that the mind is a very powerful tool when used in the right way? But unfortunately, most of us don't consciously use the mind's abilities. What happens is just the opposite. We are controlled by our own thoughts. Try stopping for a moment and asking yourself this question. Who am I? Are your answers about your job, social status, family relationships, and more? Do you realize that the answers you give are a collection of things that are outside yourself? The collection of identities you have mentioned is not who you really are. Tolle calls this the ego. Ego comes from the past, which contains a collection of experiences, memories, and more. Or the future that contains the identity you want. Second, the root of suffering. What is suffering? Usually, suffering arises because of the mind. The mind creates suffering by regretting the past or worrying about the future. Since we cannot control the past and the future, this then makes us suffer. So, what is the solution? It can start by shifting our focus from the mind to the body. Our body knows best what is best for us. By listening to your body sensations, it will make you more aware of the present moment. If you do this exercise continuously, you will change your relationship with your mind. You will be more aware of what thoughts arise, so that these thoughts will not produce suffering from anything that happened in the past or future. Another tip is to observe your thoughts without passing judgment. Earlier we discussed that the self-identity that comes from the outside is not who we really are. We can give pause in the relentless flow of thoughts by observing without giving meaning. For your information, judging things is the job of the mind in understanding. So, if you pass judgment on the thoughts that arise, then you will be back in the cycle again. For example, you wake up and start your morning run. When that happens, just follow your body and run. However, suddenly there's a voice inside you that says, why run in the morning? Better just continue sleeping. Or for example, instead of running in the morning, it's better to do the assignment that wasn't finished last night. When that voice appears, restrain yourself from giving a good or bad judgment. You just need to smile and accept that the thought arises. This exercise will make you learn how to observe your thoughts without having to follow where your mind takes you. Later, if you have practiced regularly, Tolle describes the optimal state for living in the present moment as permanent alertness. This is a state where you are in a state of active waiting. This is similar to when you realize that something big or important is about to happen. In this state, your attention will be focused on the present. You won't have time to daydream, plan, or remember the past that often distracts us from living in the present. For example, when you are taking an exam, you shouldn't spend time worrying about what the result will be. Instead, you should focus on the present and do your best on the exam. Third, accepting uncontrollable events. What if we are already living in the present moment, but feelings of sadness and pain are inevitable? Should we suppress these feelings and pretend that everything is fine? Of course not. The majority of suffering does come from our own thoughts. But of course there are things outside of our control. For example, the pain that comes from losing a loved one. What should you do? When you experience an event that gives you pain, then you can learn to accept it as it comes. For example, when you lose a loved one, you will naturally grieve and be sad. However, when you try to accept this as a part of life that cannot be changed, then you will prevent the suffering from continuing. Being sad is a natural feeling and you have nothing to be ashamed or guilty about. Accepting it means you no longer spend time wishing things were different. It's important to realize that focusing on living in the moment doesn't mean you're living a passive life. For example, if you're stuck in the mud, it doesn't mean that you just sit there and accept the situation. Instead, you can try, without panicking, to free yourself from the mud. You will see the world not as a place where there are endless problems, but you see the world as a manageable situation that you can handle one by one. Don't mourn the past, and don't worry about the future. The life you have is only in this moment, now. Please comment in the comment section what lessons you learned from reading this book. Thanks for watching and being a part of the Self-Up community. If there's a specific book or subject you're curious about, drop a comment below. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos on books, motivation, and self-development. Keep growing, and I'll see you next time.